What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you. And one that I just kind of said, hey, you want to just check this one out because, I mean, it's their 20th album. And I like to make mistakes and not only make them, but raise those mistakes to adulthood, give them a license, and just send them on their way.
And I said no. I said, no, I don't. I said, it's late and I want to go home. And
no, you didn't.
And he said, come on, let's do this. And I said, fine.
He was so down for it. But yeah, so that mistake is going over the latest offering from Anvil. One and only. This also comes out on the 28th of June on AFM Records. This band formed in 1981 in Toronto, Ontario. This is their 20th album overall. You've tied overkill. I first heard this band back when I was a teen, and I picked up a copy of their fifth album, 1988's Pound for Pound, on tape for like $1. I was pretty much just buying anything metal at that point. I was like, ooh, this has got an anvil on it, and it's got a pointy logo. It's bound to be heavy, and didn't take me long to realize the first song on there was about hockey, and I was like, man, how Canadian is this band?
I had never heard of these guys until 5 or 6 years ago, and it wasn't because I had actually heard the band at the time. I was working at Best Buy, selling Samsung phones, and in walks 4, maybe 5 long-haired dudes who looked like they were advancing in age, but they were all long-haired dudes wearing black, and I thought, wonder if they're in a band. And I talked to them for a while, and I still didn't know what they were in, but I was like, man, there's got to be dudes in a band. And so I looked it up, and it was Anvil. And I was like, well, that's cool, I guess. And yeah, that was my exposure. This is the one and only Anvil album I've ever listened to. So, yeah.
For those that don't know, this band has been around forever, old school heavy metal, often cited as influential to a lot of thrash bands early on, along with like Exciter and Judas Priest and stuff like that. For those that are slightly younger or like maybe a little bit younger than me, maybe you heard about them on their documentary, The Story of Anvil. It was, admittedly heartfelt, well-shot documentary about this little band that could. It pretty much chronicled the lives of their two vocal members, Steve Lips Kudlow and Rob Reiner. Not that Rob Reiner, but, the Rob Reiner from Anvil with 2 B's in his name.
Of course.
And admittedly, I hadn't listened to this band in forever. I think I picked up their album after that documentary came out, and I was like, it's okay.
It's a band.
That's fine. It's got its moments, and then it doesn't. So pretty much morbid curiosity got me. I was like, you know what? Let's check it out. It could be good. It could be just like, wow, oh my God, man, this far in their career, and they're putting out a solid banger.
And we said to ourselves, we questioned it. We said, what if this is good? And that was a question.
Yeah, and we would have probably said more good things than we're about to say if that was the case. But as we let in, it's not. God, this album is really not good. I generally try to sugarcoat stuff, early on with a bad album. Like, all right, well, let's, check out the positive aspects of said album. And there are very few. So, yeah, I don't know. Give me a positive thing that you heard. Okay, we're done here. On to the negatives.
No, their bass player, Chris Robertson, who notably looks younger than the rest of the band, he does a hell of a job playing bass.
And I gotta say, like, the production here is, pretty decent. It's pretty solid. Like, the guitars have a good, kind of ringing, heavy metal rock tone. Drums are nice and punchy in the mix. It was done by, sorry if I'm going to screw up your name here, Jorg Oken, who is the drummer of Temple of Dread, which is a really cool German death metal act.
There are 12 songs, which is a relatively large number.
Yes, it is. It is decidedly larger than every other number before 12. All right. A lot of this is some of the most basic bar band butt rock / occasional heavy metal I've heard. And there is nothing on here that I don't think anyone has heard before played better. Like, I don't really want to dog on this band, but I think I'm going to have to really get my point across that this is a really bad album. It opens with the title track, and there is an immediate air of familiarity because I feel like the band just slightly reworked the riff to Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water and just added a little like tag at the end or a slight chord change, and it became Smoke Near the Water.
It's, in my opinion, the Vanilla Ice Queen debacle, where we're just going to change one note. It's definitely not that song because we changed one note. Ha!
It's interesting you bring up Queen because Fight for Your Rights, which has nothing to do with Beastie Boys, partying.
No one is partying.
Probably fighting really that hard because they're advanced in age. Dude, the riff on there is really, really close to Queen's Stone Cold Crazy, or as I wrote down, Stone Cold Lazy.
The fun thing about that song is the entire song lyrically is about copyright infringement.
Yeah, and they had to have known like that riff sounded familiar because I feel like a good chunk of the riffs here were pretty much the guys just sitting around and, you know, one of them saying, hey, play me the first riff that comes in your head. And they were like, well, it's not mine, but sure, I'll play it. Personally, I think the song should be about irony because that isn't the only time it happens. Heartbroken sounds like they were sifting through Tony Iommi's trash for riffs and found one that he just discarded from, I don't know, whatever album, but it's a very like Sabbathy riff, and not just like Sabbath influence. It sounds like it is partially lifted off of a Sabbath album that I can't think of at the moment. And again, that's not the only thing borrowed on here, or at least it seems like it was borrowed. Truth is Dying. Dude, like somewhere in that song, like there's like halfway point between AC/DC and Danzig, namely Twist of Cain, because again, another riff progression that sounds so damn close to that one is like, no, we changed a couple of notes. It's totally different now. And Condemned Liberty also kind of has like a Danzig sort of vibe to it. I can't name the specific song. I just wrote Danzig 2, Can I Borrow You? But that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as complaints on here. Like, yeah, a lot of bands we've heard like, yeah, that riff sounds like this and it's really close. So, all right, maybe, you know, that's something that just kind of like, well, you know, that happens a lot. I mean, like every note has been played and rearranged in some way.
I often think about that.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. Like, all right, you've got, 5,500 notes available to you, and there's 48 billion songs out there. Like, eventually you're going to run into something, but it plays really, really close to those somethings it runs into. This is like a cover band that you would see play at the casino.
Or a state fair.
Yeah, on like a Saturday night, and the crowd is full of nothing but drunk, mid-50s, late 60s people just out there hooting and hollering, having a good time. The band's like, this kind of sounds bad, but we don't care.
Yeah, it's a lot of like, all right, raise your hand if you're recently divorced. This one goes out to you.
Woo!
Now, that would be fine and all if the songs actually had, like, something to them. But a lot of these are just very, very basic. Like, one of the lead-off singles, Feed Your Fantasy, is, I don't know, like, kind of like ZZ Top, but with, like, every good part removed from it. Like, it's got kind of that Texas blues kind of swagger to it. But the song is dumb, and I actually read some of the lyrics. Honestly, they kind of read like Cat in the Hat, except, dumber. And I say that because I feel like Steve is looking for a way to rhyme words, even if they don't necessarily work together. It's like, no, these two words sound similar, and no one's paying attention to the lyrics anyway. It's like, no, we can hear them. We can hear them clearly. And if they're not terrible on the verse, they're just terrible on the chorus because the chorus is just the song title repeated forever. And I know a lot of bands do that. Judas Priest is even guilty of that. Here's the difference. I love Judas Priest. These choruses are bland. There's no clever way they're really delivering them. Like, Feed Your Fantasy is 90% chorus and 100% dumb. It's bad, and unfortunately, it'll get stuck in your head. It's probably forming a tumor somewhere around here right now because I wanted to turn that song off, but it was only the second one, so we couldn't.
And what makes it even worse, as if it's not bad enough by this point, is if singing is not your bag, don't isolate a vocal track. And furthermore, if singing is not your bag, don't try to also harmonize.
He's not in key often, and when he harmonizes, guess what? That's two voices that aren't in key and don't line up. Like, the harmonies are worse than the isolated vocals when he's just single tracking them. And that is truly something to pull off. And I mean, you know, I don't even know how you even mix and master around that, because I don't know, like maybe they said, no auto-tune, we want to go natural. It's like, maybe a little bit of auto-tune? Maybe just a little bit of auto-tune.
I mean, to be honest, that's also talent. It's not the good kind, but it's a talent to make your harmonized vocals sound worse than your isolated vocals. Like, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, you get like frequent moments where like he is clearly out of key, like Gold and Diamonds. It's a split second where they isolate the vocals, and it is the most sour note. And then it is back to the, you know, riffy gallops that are okay. But yeah, nothing on here really kind of just jumps out and says, hey, I at least aspire to be a good song.
So outside of the vocals, then let's talk about the music here. In Heartbroken, there's a time pretty early on where the drummer goes to hit a transition and biffs it. And it's really noticeable. And you'd think that would be the only time that would happen. But then on Dead Man's Shoes, not Dead Man's Shoes, but Dead Man's Shoes. I'm not convinced if they're made of man or not. Did he die during the demo sessions and they took his shoes? I don't know. There's sloppy transitions in there too, and I thought, okay, this is a time too many, so either they didn't play to the click or, I don't know, they stroked out. I don't know.
I don't know, like a lot of this, I mean, it feels like these songs could have been hammered out a lot, like just in terms of like nailing transitions or just doing something a little bit more than just like the most basic thing. I feel like this album, like they had 24 hours to record the entire thing, and like their family was at gunpoint the entire time. It's like, you better riff. Like, oh, okay. It's like, that sounds like Deep Purple. It kind of is.
And then there's Rocking the World, which to me, even without the title of the track, sounded like something they'd play at an amusement park during the fireworks. Like, the park is closed, everyone's got on their red, white, and blue bandanas, or in this case, a white bandana with a red maple leaf on it, you know, and they're jamming out, and then the chorus comes on, and the whole crowd sings Rocking the World.
Rocking the World is so basic. The best thing I could say about the song is it exists. You did just enough to form a song there that is heavy but like gloriously inoffensive and bland and just not memorable, or at least memorable in a good way. Same thing with Runaway, which, yeah, the chorus, and I think the entire song is about this album, like just run, just get away from it. Did you see the album cover? Did you make eye contact with it? Get away, it'll follow you home.
To me, this song is like your significant other's father invites you to see a show, and he assures you, above all else, that this band is fire. And so, because it's your significant other's dad, you go with him, and you hear him out, and that's this song. That's this album in its entirety.
It's his buddy's band. His buddy is an alcoholic on his third divorce. He's got like 8 DUIs. He had to ride his bike to the show. His bandmates actually brought his, I don't know, what is he playing? Bass, guitar?
Yes.
Whatever. You know, it doesn't matter. It's bad. Some of this is so cheesy and so corny. Like, I feel like it's not even a real band. Like, it's an animatronic band at a kid's pizza place. It's just, I don't get it. Like, I don't get this album. And I listen to a lot of like meat and potato stuff. Like, there's tons of like classic heavy metal I listen to that's like, yeah, this is essentially one riff, a big anthemic chorus, and we're back to that riff with maybe a lead. That is a solid formula. It's worked for years. And this band really tries at it, but I mean, like, barely anything on here really lands. And it's very sloppy. Like, you can hear it across the board. Like, you know, the solos are very, oddly picked at times. Like, it doesn't sound like he quite hits the right notes, or at least hits them, like, just perfectly every time. The choruses, or rather the song titles, the vocal harmonies just don't land. Like, there's so much stuff that I feel like is like a checklist early on before even getting to the studio to make sure you got these things down. And they missed. They missed quite gloriously. Mm-hmm. Like, I know this band has diehard fans. I'm reasonably sure of it. You're not a band for this long without a, at least, solid fan base. I mean, I know I hate ICP, but they got fans, and I hate that. But yeah, these guys have been around for a while. I know they've had like earlier, successes, or at least like modest ones. But man, like, listening to this, if I was a diehard fan, I would have trouble digesting this as a completed piece of work and like, a fresh new album from these guys.
And that's something too, we've seen over the last year or so, couple years at least, where old bands come back and knock it out of the park. The last Judas Priest was amazing. Saxon knocked it out of the fucking park. I mean, there's old dudes that have been around for a long time that are still slaying. And you got these guys who are on their 20th album, and especially in this day and age, to release something like this, as bland as it was, like, come on. It's almost like they were trolling themselves.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like this is almost a parody of, like, classic heavy metal. Maybe the one song on here that I thought was, kind of decent was probably the last track, Blind Rage, just because it's a heavier song, and there's a pretty solid riff in it. And, I think they knew it because they play the same riff throughout the entire song, because they were like, hey, I think we finally found a good one. Let's never let it go. And of course, suffocate it like the rabbits. And the album is paced oddly too. I'm going to throw in that too. There are at least 3 tracks that have big finishes on them. And all 3 of them are nowhere near the end of the album. Believe me, when I heard the first big finish on Dead Man's Shoes, I don't get that title. Like, Dead Man's Shoes would be better. Dead Man's Shoes. Are the shoes male? Anyway, there's a big finish at the end of it. It is track number 6. And believe me, I was like, man, if this album was over right here, I'd be so happy. But it wasn't. I still had half an album to go. And again, they're kind of just like random things. And weirdly enough, the last track, the one where you figure like, all right, big finish, man. This is the big closer. Nope, it just ends. I don't know. I don't get this. And I want to say nicer things about this band because I watched that documentary. It is heartfelt. You do kind of like low-key root for these guys because they're underdogs. But I can't defend this as anything beyond a 1.5 star mark, because this isn't good. Like, this is just kind of bland bar rock. Like, if you get this album, it comes with a coupon for a discount on a Harley Davidson shirt. Yeah, I think this band has just kind of hung on too long. Like, the riff well has dried up. Lips has never been the best singer, and he's not getting better. And like, this just feels like a hurried mess of just generic songs with generic song titles, with generic lyrics, and other generic things that came together on a generic album. That this will be the one and only time I listen to it. Yeah, this isn't good. If you're a longtime fan of this band, I'd still urge you to check it out. If you've never heard Anvil before, go back and listen to like some of the earlier stuff. Like, there were some pretty decent albums early on, but not this one. This is not good. But again, form your own opinions. Who knows? This could be your favorite album. God, I can't even convince myself that there's a chance of that. Man, that's bad. Just, check it out if you've got the time and you have nothing better to do. Sorry, Anvil.
I listened to this album. I'm gonna give it a 1. The bass playing is excellent. That's it. The rest of it, though, first of all, it feels like I've heard over half of these songs before, just played better
by different bands.
By different bands who are very talented, who made me love those songs back when they wrote them. Yeah, Fight for Your Rights, again known as Partying, and it's about copyright infringement. And I feel like, I don't know if they were digging on themselves or what, but it happened. It feels like they wanted this to be great because they've been around 43 years, and the only reason I know that is because I was born in 1981. You know, I know they probably wanted to try and do something, and they did in the sense that they all packed up their instruments and went to the studio and then played these songs. But there's not a lot going on. I feel like I went to a bowling alley and somebody drunk just pumped a bunch of quarters into a jukebox and said, check this shit out. And I did.
You just put in $20 worth of Jackal, you asshole.
Or you could be like Shred and go to Waffle House and put in $20 worth of What's New Pussycat.
That's endearing, though.
Over and over. It was hilarious. Anyway, yeah, I don't have a lot of nice things to say, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. And once it was over, I rejoiced, although I was kind of in a blind rage. Yeah, this is the one and only album I've heard. It is the one and only album I will probably listen to. It is the one and only time I will definitely hear this record. If you're a fan of all the bands we mentioned, listen to them.
That's fair. That is fair.
Yep. If you liked Anvil before, you might listen to this. You might give it a chance. Who knows? But once again, we're idiots. You don't have to listen to us. You certainly don't have to listen to this album, but you don't have to listen to us. Form your own opinions. Give it a whirl if you feel so inclined. Maybe get drunk first. Maybe that will help. It was not for me. Anyway, check it out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, up in the bottom right-hand corner of our banner, but if you want Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts, both old and new. The old ones are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats too. And if you're looking for all that stuff, you have to click the link down below.
As always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal, album reviews, discography rankings. We finally have a date for Meshuggah, so that's going to be happening really soon. Collection updates, because what the hell else is this guy going to do? Is it metal? Is it not metal? States of metal. Tons of things coming, all metal related. We do it for you guys. We genuinely appreciate you. Thank you to all of our fans, all of our family, all of our friends, everybody that keeps us going. It's mostly you guys that keep us going. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us. May we continue to do awesome things for you, because we appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule. And again, tons of stuff coming at you in the future on this channel. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.